All right, welcome back to Gathering Folds. I'm Madonna Yoder. In this live stream, this video, I'm going to be walking through this massive stack of origami tessellations that I folded in, the span from mid-December 2024 to the end of March 2025. So I've got these organized actually in the order that I photographed them, not the order that I folded them. So the smallest pieces are on top, and we'll work our way down to those two massive ones on the bottom. So this first one, and this is, so there's kind of two broad styles of folding that I do. One style is demonstration pieces, like these tiny ones. And this is stuff that's been sitting on my designed but not folded list for too long. And so I just go ahead and do a version on a 32 division grid, teeny tiny grid. Welcome Erlu, welcome everyone. And so this one's called Enfolding Love. And by the way, the reason why I'm folding these teeny tiny versions is so I can get photos, so I can put them in Tessellation Garden, which you can see more details about down in the description. So, so these teeny tiny ones, so this one is Empty Nests, if I remember correctly. They are really serving that purpose of getting the crease pattern off my cue. So same with this one. I think I called it Broken Hearts, something like that. And I named these before I fold them, so the name may or may not match well with exactly what it looks like. And then these guys are also in that same situation of I wanted to fold them to get them off my cue and get them into Tessellation Garden. They are some pretty neat patterns that I felt needed a bigger grid because of the super high density in here. And notice there's these other hexagons on the back. This is an extended symmetry pattern on an expanded tiling, the hexagon, rhombus, triangle, rhombus, expanded tiling. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to continue this motif, even if you do have that triangle in the potential position of threefold rotational symmetry. And I'll be folding another pattern in this same symmetry on this tiling in an upcoming live stream. I was actually just working on the grid for that right before I started streaming. So then there's Pyrite. This is actually a hexagons and triangles pattern, right angles notwithstanding. And the way it works is that the tips of these hybrid hexagons are tucking under the next hexagon over and hiding an entire closed triangle that when it's tucked away, you cannot see from either side of the paper. Now there's hints, of course, that it has to be there because you've got that closed triangle hole. But yeah, this is the first pattern I have where there are entire hidden twists. Very dense. I was also testing like how good this particular paper is. These three are folded on parch tone instead of sky tone because the supplier for sky tone is apparently not producing very much, and they cut back on the number of colors, and parch tone still seems to be producing the pink, green, and gold colors that are so nice for tessellations. This is another of those that I just wanted off my cue. And then there's Actually, so we'll say there's three types of patterns. There's patterns that are being folded to put in to my courses. So this one is Human Pyramid. It was folded for the Tessellation Academy course. It's not going to come out until December in there. So I'm already up to date through next February for patterns in Tessellation Academy. I'll point those out as we go on. Okay, so there's a fourth category, which is patterns that I've folded in workshops. So in Tessellation Academy, we have these workshops where we go through a structure and then design something together, and then I immediately show how to fold it. And this was one of those. This was one of those. And so those videos of like the design process of these patterns are in Tessellation Academy. Then there's things that I wanted off the queue, but I left for an office hour. So this one was actually named Maze Runner during I believe it was a Basic Twist Bootcamp office hour. It's another example of the expanded symmetry. So the next hexagon out is a different hexagon. So it's still a closed hexagon, but it being on the opposite side lets us treat it as a different, distinct position in the tiling. This is the hex rom, tri-rom tiling, but using two different rhombus twists and two different hexagon twists. So many options that have not been explored. This is another pattern for the for words Tessellation Academy. This is an upcoming month, I believe July. Yeah, this will be in July. Then there's the patterns that I folded for the first time during YouTube tutorials. So this is the tutorial on alternate endings of the hex tri rom tri tiling, well, extended symmetry. And the pattern, I didn't pull out my cheat sheet. So you can see the pattern in one of my previous live streams, recent one. Likewise, this guy was a YouTube live stream back in January. It's named Artificial Reef. And then this one was, I believe, another Tessellation Academy design from December. Yeah, because it's the hex double rom tri tiling. There's a lot of cool stuff we're doing in Tessellation Academy. Another Tessellation Academy design with our hybrid square twist topic. Or was it the square symmetry extensions? I forget which ones I've done already and which ones I'm planning to do, but I have a lot of documentation to take care of that. So that's all of the teaching and getting things off my queue patterns. These are the ones that I went ahead and did full versions of. Now, some of these are still for teaching purposes. And for example, this one is going to be day one of Advent of Test this year. All closed triangle twists on one side with an interesting pattern of spacing. And yeah, earlier I just saw your comment that making these precise folds is difficult, but yeah, it is a matter of practice, and really paying attention to what shapes you're adding in the sequence, but also like just how can you make the paper happy with what's already in place. So this one is called Poison Ivy. If I remember correctly, it's going to be an alternate ending for Advent of Test this year, but it was another of those that was just in my queue. Labyrinth is a pattern that, if I remember correctly, well, it's definitely a topic that we've talked about in Tessellation Academy. It may also be one of the patterns that go in there. Supply chains is going to be in Tessellation Academy in December. Yeah, so human pyramid would be November, because I'm doing hybrid hexagon twists and then mixed depth hexagon twists. And then Denatured is actually one that I designed more recently that has 4 distinct hybrid hexagon twists that are each acting as positions of twofold rotational symmetry. Yeah, so in the comments, Erlu and Nancy are saying they're both in Tessellation Academy, and these things are still hard, but they're making really good progress. So there's some really cool things that you can do with reducing the symmetry in hexagons and triangles 6-fold tiling. And Summer Islands is one that I designed for Tessellation Academy and will be in June with the hexagons and triangles 6-fold expansion tilings. And this is a tiling that I first explored actually in one of my live streams in November, talking about how there's infinitely many alternate endings for any pattern, really. And here's another one that I folded during a YouTube live stream earlier this year. This one is Stormy Seas, and it uses the hybrid hexagon twists along with the rhombus twists like we would see in Andromeda, and creates the pattern that way. There's Crystallization, which was one of those that was like on my queue, but then it's also one of the ones coming up in Advent of Tess this year. You can see I'm thinking really far ahead with the Advent of Tess. Like, it's April and I'm already folding pieces for December, but actually I'm folding them for October because that's when the ebook is going to be ready. So there's Kaleidoscope and a very similar pattern, Hibiscus. Those I could see eventually getting into an Advent of Tess, so I went ahead and folded the alternate ending too. But it's also just really cool to see that you can have this super dense area and then just go to an open hexagon. And these two are also a study on using precisely the same grid with different symmetry extensions of the same central motif. So it was close enough, like the standard grid was close enough to the tiling breaks of each of these that I just went ahead and used standard grids. It looks like I used rotated grids. And speaking of standard grids, here we have not parachutes, but that other pattern that I folded the other week. And this one I did entirely on my live stream. So now that crease pattern is in Tessellation Garden. All of these crease patterns are in Tessellation Garden. And even some really weird things, like this pattern I named Subversion, because not only is this open hexagon closed triangle center, which creates that kind of star weave-y motif, on the opposite side from like with the same hybrid hexagons as inlaid. So that would be the same as inversion, one of the patterns that I did in a live stream. But then it goes and doesn't treat that hybrid hexagon as a position of twofold symmetry. It has 3 of them in a sequence and also has these kite hybrid hexagons. So it gets really complicated really fast, but it's still using relatively reasonable spacing. I mean, there's definitely areas where twists are overlapping and you have single wide pleats, and you have these areas where the triangles are right next to each other, in a flagstone sense, not a closed triangles all on the same side of the paper sense. And yeah, you can go really wild with different ways of using these twists. And another pattern for Tessellation Academy coming up. This is mitosis, also for June. And again, we've got these rhombus twists outside of this hexagons and triangles motif. And we actually have more rhombus twists on the back as well. This is a relatively flexible tiling, so I expect many more patterns will be found with this style of repeats. And yeah, this is a wild one. This is unsettled. It has these chunks that are repeating, and each chunk has a central hexagon, a rhombus right next to the hexagon, more rhombi in the gaps. There's these triangles, there's these 6 other hexagons, there's more triangles, and then they're interfacing with the next repeats with this triangle and rhombus alternating area. So that's just kind of wild that you can take all of this and put it into one pattern. And yeah, lots of fun coming up in Tessellation Academy. This one is an alternate ending of dancing ribbons. So you can see that closed hexagon, closed triangle, closed rhombus in the center. Oh, nice. Really, you're going to have a great birthday with all of those patterns. And then it goes out into a bunch of triangles. And then it hits a ring of pure hexagons. So that ring of pure hexagons is kind of the bounding structure of the pattern overall. And this has just those closed hexagons that are the central repeats in the center, and you can see there's a lot of stuff going on in between these repeats, which is why I used a bigger paper and bigger grid to fold it. So yeah, lots of stuff going on here. This one's named Religio, for the things that bind us together. And now it's the open hexagon, closed triangle patterns. I'll be sharing more about this one, triplicate, in a lot of my social media posts this week. And it's one of the ones that I folded in a live stream in January. And then we've got that other side where we see that same center as, I think it was symbiosis, is the one where that triangle, or sorry, that hexagon is treated as a position of threefold rotational symmetry. Here the threefold position is out in this triangle. And so there's so much going on here. And in the live stream where I started folding the twists on this grid, I was showing also a trick that I came up with to help place these hexagons close together and not have like a ton of crunchy overlaps when you're trying to squash your hexagon. And then, yeah, earlier, I already posted the short video of me talking about this pattern on Instagram this morning. Then there's taffy pull. This one I also did in a live stream more recently. And yeah, there's so much fun stuff going on this pattern. Like, it starts alternating and then it takes like a chunk of the pattern and just flips it over here, and it still lines up on the same pleats, which is incidentally something we have talked about in Tessellation Academy. We had a whole topic on open hexagon and closed triangle twist patterns last June or so, May or June. And so the crease patterns for a lot of these options of how to get these chunks to repeat are things that you can derive from those Tessellation Academy, well, the PDF and the decision tree, and there's a lot of cool diagrams that I put into Tessellation Academy. And then here's the back side. So yeah, you can definitely see that I've been staying busy with folding all kinds of things. So Nancy, you were asking about the number of grid divisions for taffy pull. I'm pretty sure I did that with 96 divisions. But it's either 80 or 96, one of those. So yeah, all kinds of fun stuff going on. Oh, I remember, it was 96 for the most recent one. Might have been a little less, might have been 80 for this guy. So yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff that I've folded lately. And if we just count them up, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 patterns with more than 64 divisions. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with 64 divisions, and pretty sure these had 48, so 1, 2, that might be a little less, but let's go 3, 4 with 48 divisions, and then most of the rest have 32. So yeah, there's a lot of folding going on behind the scenes to get all of this done in 3.5 months, including Christmas break. And that's about how much I fold on average. So with this update, there's already 568 patterns in Tessellation Garden. So that's not only crease patterns, but also photos of the front and back, usually with backlighting. That's organization by difficulty rating. So I have my like 3x3 rubric of, okay, this one has 4 distinct twists, and the hardest twist in there is a trapezoid, therefore it's in the 2B category. Or it has 6 or 7 distinct twists, and the hardest twist is a rhombus, therefore it's in the 3B category. So there's all of these different categories that you can go and look in and be like, oh, I was comfortable folding this pattern in the 2B category. And I will say the 2B category is kind of the broadest category. It's the middle one that goes from like extended symmetry patterns with square twists. Well, what would tip you over into 2B is if it used a double open square. All the way to, okay, it has 5 twists and uses hybrid squares, or it uses trapezoids, or it uses trapezoids and rhombi. And you can get into some sticky territory there, especially with, say, this one, which I'm pretty sure I categorized 2B because it has 1, 2, well, depending how you count, it has only 4 distinct twists if you're saying closed hexagon, closed rhombus, closed triangle, open triangle. But if you look at the actual positions, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 distinct positions. So this one might be a 3B. And particularly with the dense spacing, I probably put it in 3B. But something like this guy would be a 2B, even though it is really dense. And there are parts that pretty much need to be air folded. It only has 4 distinct positions in the pattern, and the hardest twist is an open rhombus. So there's a little bit of gray area of, okay, the 2B category is kind of broad when it comes to figuring out what skill level to work at. So like I was saying, in Tessellation Garden, we have this categorization by skill level. We have recommendations in each individual pattern area of like, what's something that's just a little bit easier? What's something that's just a little bit harder? And those aren't really synchronized to like whenever I add new ones. I don't redo all of the recommendations because that would be a lot. But that gets you in the ballpark of like, okay, these are, like, I tried this pattern, it was a little too hard, let me see what's slightly easier. Maybe what's slightly easier than that as well. I try not to have cycles because you can think of some things as leading this way and also leading that way, and for different reasons. There's a lot. There's just a lot of patterns in Tessellation Garden. And then we have kind of what I think of as the most valuable part. If you want to see if a particular pattern has videos, which is a spreadsheet with all of the patterns with links to the webpage in Tessellation Garden where you can download the PDF of the crease pattern and alignment and all of these things. And that spreadsheet also has whether it was ever in Advent of Tess, what day, what year, is it an alternate ending, which means it's only in the ebook, or is it like an actual video in Advent of Tess? It links to those videos. It links to anywhere that I've talked about these patterns, which I'm just remembering I should probably update everywhere that I've put the shorts, but that's next up. It has all the links if I have any YouTube tutorial on any of the patterns. It also says whether the pattern has showed up in any courses and which courses, and whether it's in an office hour or in the crease pattern library for the course, or if it was actually taught in a lesson. So that's a really useful way to keep track of all of these different patterns. And then, of course, I have an updates page in Tessellation Garden where I show, like, okay, these are the new ones, because if I just say I updated it, there's 32, go find them, that would be mildly cruel and unusual. But yeah, there's so much good stuff. Yeah, Nancy, I'm glad that you're enjoying the spreadsheet. That's something that I added just over a year ago. I think I've had Tessellation Garden open for about a year and a half now, and I've updated it maybe five or six times. There's over 100 more patterns now than when it first opened. And that trend is just going to continue. So happy folding, everyone. I recommend like picking a pattern or two, working on that until you really understand it, and then going on to the next pattern, because the skills that I have where I'm able to pump out so many different patterns one after the other is born of many years of folding and many years of teaching. So the teaching part has really accelerated the things that I am able to fold. Like, for example, I thought that this would be super, super hard to fold, but it actually works out with the hexagon and triangle techniques that I've been teaching, surprisingly. Just with a lot more relayering of things. It's named Pyrite, by the way, if you want to look it up in Tessellation Garden. So it's always amazing to me, like what things are now easy that used to be hard. So there's quite a lot of things that that can be folded pretty straightforwardly once you build up the skills, but the skills are required first. And so that's why there's practice patterns and courses like Tessellation Starter Sequence that you can see on my website. So happy folding, everyone. And definitely check out Tessellation Garden if you're interested in having more tessellations than you could fold in a lifetime. So yeah, earlier brought up the combinatorics. I'm definitely using a lot of combinatorics for this open hexagon closed triangle series. And actually that brings up a great point, because over the weekend I was taking a workshop in the Geometric Origami Convention online from Miguel Gagnon, and he did a move that I would never do in my tessellations, which is just take an area and fold through a bunch of pleats, just like as the new fold, kind of making a new twist, but kind of not. And that's something that I avoid because I like the mathematical certainty of, okay, we're going to have twists in tiles, they connect with single pleats or with accordion pleats or whatever other kind of pleat, but they connect one to one. And sometimes I do patterns where like there's a hexagon and 6 rhombi and some triangle interactions of pleats acting like a single hexagon. But that's really more rare for me. There's just so much to explore, even when you keep it to the individual tilings. So yeah, happy folding, everyone, and see you in the next video.